Hello and welcome to another episode of Allo and Ace podcast. I am the allosexual Skylar.
And I'm the asexual Jessie.
You sang it.
Yes, I did.
Deja vu. I feel like we just recorded this intro.
It's because we did.
Welcome to episode 17, Jessie.
Yeah, can you believe 17? Wow.
That's pretty good.
I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Especially for taking a 3-week break.
Yeah. Hi, guys. We missed you.
Yes, we did. I'm sure someone missed us, but...
Hopefully.
So to start things off, we will give the typical trigger warnings. This is an asexual podcast that discusses asexuality, sexuality. We can discuss sex, SA, and other things in
Mental
that
health
nature.
issues. Yes.
So if while you're listening, you have a struggle, we ask you to please stop and I guess
Get some help.
Yeah.
Do what's needed to ground you again. And if that means reaching out to a therapist, whatnot, talking to a loved one, please do so.
We are also not professionals.
No, we're not professionals.
I don't think we've tricked anyone.
I don't think we have either.
So, Jessie.
Oh no. Oh no. It's coming.
How's it going?
How's it going? Things are decent.
Decent.
Yeah.
What makes them decent?
Things are doable. I feel like it's better than fine. I think decent is like 65%. Last week was like 30%. It was a rough week last week. So I feel like we're moving in the right direction.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How are you?
Maybe we should, give a little bit about where we've been the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So we took a short trip to Sacramento to visit family, and it was like get there Friday at 6 p.m., leave Sunday morning, get to the airport at 1 p.m., and drive 6 hours to Lake Powell, where we spent Sunday to Sunday, and then drove 6 hours home, got back Sunday night at like 9 p.m., to turn around, get kids to bed, and me supposing to start at work on Monday.
Yeah.
And then the following weekend, so just barely, we had a camping trip with the company I work for with my, team. And that was good. But we thought we were going to record an episode when we got back, but we were so tired.
We were so tired. We weren't thinking clearly. And then we thought we were going to record an episode last night, and it just, there was this gut feeling of no, not yet. And so here we are tonight, and it feels great to be recording. That is something that I feel really good about, not just decent about.
Exactly. And if people are watching the news or seeing it in the news, Lake Powell had an incident the Thursday after we left where the toilet bowl, which is what it is named, collapsed.
Or the donut hole.
So we were going to go to that, and we did not, but we did go to see the Rainbow Bridge, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, look it up. Look up Rainbow Bridge. I don't know what would come up, though, Googling Rainbow Bridge. If you look up Rainbow Bridge...
Lake Powell.
Then you'll see. It's like incredible. It's so incredible.
But now I'm like, well, now I missed my opportunity to see the toilet bowl because it collapsed.
You did.
You'll never see it again.
You did. You probably would have thought it was cool.
Probably. I'm really into like rock formations and rocks and stuff like that. I'm always fascinated by them.
Yeah.
The camping trip was more local region up in the canyons that are around here, and it was a good time. And we went to, well, you didn't, but I went on a hike to what's called Donut Falls.
So look up Donut Falls,
But
Utah.
it was more dried up than the last time we went there, and I totally forgot we had even gone there. So that's how memorable that was to me.
Oh, okay.
But I did collect some wildflowers for a bouquet for Jessie, and that's been something I've enjoyed actually since Lake Powell. There was some times where I went hiking and I had these different like locations that I would name. So there was Raven Rock and some other places. And while I was out hiking, I came across some flowers that were only in this gully. You couldn't see them anywhere else from where we were. And so I made a miniature bouquet for her with that, and I just had fun doing that. So while I was on the hike, while she was gone, she had to leave somewhere when we were camping. So when she came back and I got back from the hike, I had this wildflower foliage bouquet for her.
Yeah, I'll post a couple pictures of what those looked like from the last 2 weeks, probably sometime this week.
And Jessie hates, like, we're not into, I think we talked about this probably in one of the episodes, but we're not really into like,
we're not into commercial
Yeah.
romance gestures.
And me going to the store and buying her a bouquet of flowers would not impress her. It wouldn't do anything for her. I don't even think it would lift her spirits per se. She would probably be like, that's just going to die in a couple days, and it reminds her of funerals.
It does remind me of funerals. I don't know. It's just a weird thing I have. But this doesn't feel like that. You picking wildflowers feels different from going to the store. I do understand the thoughtfulness behind it.
Yeah.
So I would appreciate the thoughtfulness if you were to bring home flowers from the store. But
And we're not saying that that's dumb or anything. Like,
that's just a me thing.
If that's your thing, great.
I love that for you.
But this, it's fun for me to arrange them and figure out like how to place them, and then, And I know that they're gonna die within like an hour. So
Yeah.
But other than that, there hasn't been a ton of stuff going on other than school starting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as far as like,
I'm like, we've had a shit ton of stuff going on. What are you talking about?
I mean, like, nothing crazy.
Yeah, everything was just bunched into like a 2.5 week period.
Yeah, because even Lake Powell was a lot of like relaxing and there was a lot to do while you're there, but a week there's not like a lot of stuff that came out of that week.
Yeah.
Is what I mean.
Right.
But we did want to, I think we wanted to start this episode off 9 minutes into it with, first off, thanking everyone who reaches out to us and sends us messages.
Always.
We will always say this, hopefully, that we just really enjoy when people reach out and messaging us, and we love talking to people. It's kind of why we do this, is because it's a way for us to be a part of the community and to provide resources and hopefully conversation and make people not feel alone to those who do, and just share our experience. And we have people that reach out that usually get some extra information because they might ask questions or something.
Right.
And some of those make it onto the podcast because someone will ask a question and we're like, oh, that would be good to talk about.
Right. We absolutely love it. Please don't ever feel bad for reaching out. And if you haven't reached out yet and you felt maybe like you want to, go ahead and do it. I don't think you'll regret it.
Yeah, we are on most socials. If you just search for Aloe and Ace Podcast, and if you prefer emailing us, you can do so at aloeandacepodcast@gmail.com. I think the one thing we wanted to do, and we've talked about clarifying stuff before, I think that we wanted to make a few clarifications from episode 16. Episode 16 was a doozy.
Oh my gosh, that is an understatement.
So, and maybe, maybe this is something that you can talk about with our listeners is, how you felt. Because it actually, people don't really know this other than a couple people who have probably been talking to us. But the after effects of that episode, we were still talking about stuff, I mean, until yesterday, really. But multiple days after, there was still some really big conversations.
Big conversations, big feelings, a lot of processing. It took me by so much surprise. And I think I said this at the end of the last episode. I was really nervous to release it. And I said, here goes nothing. Skylar said, we need to release it. I think it's really great because it shows a different vulnerability that we don't have as much on our episodes. And I'm like, oh, okay. And, with releasing episodes comes questions, comes messages from all of you fine folk. And sometimes that can feel a little bit scary because it's like, oh, when I have these big feelings and big conversations that are still happening, it can be hard to know how to feel and what to say. But the outpouring of love that we received from last episode that we released was incredible. And a lot of people were saying it was their favorite episode. And so yet again, it just showed me like, yeah, it was tense. It was a tense episode for me. It was a tense few days afterward, but it was 1,000,000% worth it.
And there was a lot of people who I think they didn't understand maybe what sexual compliance was fully and how they had participated in their own relationships in a sexual compliance manner for so long, and they didn't quite maybe know the wording for it.
Yeah.
And like we talked about in that episode, we had other language that we used internally for it until I came across, a few articles where it discussed that nature in a relationship and that sexual compliance was the phrase that, made more sense.
Right. I feel like there were several things about episode 16 that, thanks for that, that were quite heavy. It was, I don't know, it was one of our heaviest episodes. It was also 2 hours long.
It was the longest episode.
It was very intense. But, it's been a few weeks now, and we've continued to have the conversations around the biggest whoppers from that episode. And if you couldn't tell, the biggest one was, it started by reenacting a situation between a partnership or a couple that could happen. And that's what really sparked it. And it was the whole conversation around what is an allosexual partner supposed to do when they are missing physical intimacy in a sex way, or they're feeling kind of sad, having a bit of a down day. And are they supposed to come to you and let you know that they're feeling that way? And Skylar and I have always said honesty is best. But this one really, really threw both of us. I think it really threw me. Skylar, how did you feel?
I don't think that you probably felt like you were going to have the gut reaction that you had.
No, it was intense. It was really difficult. And I was trying everything to keep it, to not freak out, kind of, honestly. It shocked me. It took me by all the surprises, and I didn't know what to do with my feelings. I didn't know why I was reacting so strongly. A lot of big feelings. And then we even took that break and had to come back. And then I was real honest with how hard the conversation was feeling. So how were you feeling though about it? Like, what was going through your head?
I mean, it's hard because you were, I think, personalizing it to yourself as the sex averse, sex repulse, asexual, and how that would feel if I came to you and I was doing it in a way where it's not something that I'm actually having, and it's not something that I'm thinking about. So,
You have it wrong though.
oh,
See, I think it looked like that. I think it felt like that to possibly a lot of people or folks listening. I think it could easily feel that way to you. But what I realized, and you know what? I even was like, why am I so worked up over this? I don't feel worked up because I think I think about Skylar doing that for real, and it's not.
oh yeah, I remember
Yeah,
your reasoning.
I had
Yeah.
this aha with, I think I know why I got so worked up. And this is why. And for some reason it feels vulnerable saying this, but the bottom line is we are speaking out into the world, right? And we have all of these amazing, beautiful, thoughtful listeners. But we are sure that there are some listeners that aren't maybe as thoughtful, that might be listening to our podcast, that are having a really difficult time in a non-productive way. And I got really scared that maybe by having this discussion, it might seem like we were promoting an allosexual partner to always go up to their asexual partner and let them know, hey, I miss sex. Like that's what it was coming through to me in my ear holes. And it scared me because I was like, I never want our community, this community that we care so much about, I don't want to cause more pain. I don't want to cause more pain with the asexuals. But at the same time, I don't want to cause more pain for the allosexual in a partnership either, where they feel like they can't be honest. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It was very tricky. And so the really big reaction was a fear and protection of the community.
Yeah, that we were promoting something that could cause someone to spiral.
Yes, exactly. So I didn't want anyone to think that I didn't want possibly, and this is going to maybe sound harsh, but I didn't want a partner that may be a bit manipulative to take advantage of the advice that we try to offer and twist it and then go to their partner constantly and their partner feel bad about it.
Well, and say, well, Skylar and Jesse said that I should talk to you, on the
Right.
podcast. They said that if I'm feeling this way, then I
I
should.
need to be honest. Yeah. And last week I met with my therapist, of course, and she's amazing and awesome. Go to therapy if you need it, please. Actually, everyone needs therapy. There you go. It just takes some time to find a good one sometimes. But anyway, I talked to her and initially asking her, like, what do you do in this situation? Even she was like, I'm going to need some time to think about that. That's kind of tricky. And I'm like, it is, isn't it?
Because I think in a normal relationship, again, we don't like to use that word, but
Normal in quotations.
yeah,
Yeah.
in a non-asexual relationship, I think it would be fairly common for someone to approach the other person with something like that, saying, "Hey, it's been a while," or
Hey, I want to connect with you intimately. Yeah.
where it doesn't matter how long it's been, there's never going to be a good time for me to tell Jesse that I miss sex.
Yeah. That's true.
It can be 40 years and it's not going to ever be a good time.
If you came to me in 40 years and told me that, I'd be like, well, what the F have we been doing for 40 years? Are you kidding me? And I know that sounds, I don't know, probably not the healthiest, but that is the honest to goodness, real reaction of what I first think of when I think of that happening. So we have brought this up and talked about this, I think maybe 100 times in the last 3 weeks. I don't know. It's been a lot.
Yeah.
Especially within that first week. Wow. Like constantly on the brain, processing it, trying to come up with what does this actually look like? How can people healthily approach this? Because this is common in these relationships. Of course, your allosexual partner has a subconscious missing of this physical act or connecting in that way, How is it approached?
Well, and unless you're similar to the ace couple who has a podcast and they both met each other as asexual people, the reason why you would be potentially listening to this is because there is conflict in that regard in your relationship. There's possibly an allosexual who wants to have more sex than the asexual partner. And the asexual partner has, if they're not sex favorable or indifferent, then they're averse or repulsed. And there is a lot of that in the asexual community. I mean, so much so that a lot of people don't even think that asexual people have sex.
Yeah, that is the first thought. Honestly, I think that that's the first thought.
And so at a base level, most asexual people know that the allosexual partner would want to have sex.
I would agree with that.
And so Jesse already knows that I enjoy sex, that sex is a thing that I would do, normally, I would say, and if it didn't cause, an adverse reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So if Jesse was sex indifferent or sex favorable, I would be willing and open to have sex. And even at that point, if she was sex favorable, I'm sure that she would have some degree of wanting me to initiate more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm sure that you would agree that you would be happy to do that whenever initiated.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and we talked about, taking sex off the table because the last, 3 times that it's happened, or at least the last 2, that it's been a real negative experience for Jesse. And so it just really was me being like, why are you doing this? Like, if you're doing this because you think that you should for me, then I don't want you to, because in the end, it's just going to make you feel like trash, and it's going to make me not feel good about the experience anyway. So why are we doing that? If you were more so just like, hey, I want to do this for you, and, just when you're done, I'm done. I don't really need to go much more than that, and you were kind of indifferent to it, then it wouldn't be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Jesse already knows that sex is something that I enjoy. She also knows that it is something that we don't do.
Mm-hmm.
So
very aware.
and we don't have an open relationship. So I am essentially choosing celibacy, and Jessie she's not choosing celibacy. She is an asexual who is sex averse, repulsed, and she doesn't want to have sex. She doesn't think about sex. And so I can choose celibacy. She knows that it's not something that I would normally choose, like in the world, but I'm willing to because I love her.
Are you willing to, or are you happy to?
I'm happy. Well, I mean, so people can say it's not a matter of happiness. It's a matter of being willing to look at everything in our relationship and know that I value everything else in our relationship over sex.
Yeah, but do you find joy in knowing that you are respecting the boundaries that I have?
Well, the happiness in the relationship and everything in that is only going to be there if I respect you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not like I'm in a relationship and I'm like, I am happy to choose 9 things and sex is not going to be one of them. Like, that wouldn't, in a normal situation, that wouldn't be the first thing that I would.
I guess the bigger question is like, you're just so happy to be in this relationship with me.
Because
so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because I can't go back and say what I would have done 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not what it is. And I'll never be in a situation where that's a real thought process to have.
But what if you could take a magic pill?
I can't. because whatever hypothetical reaction I have right now is not going to be genuine.
No, but you know how you thought 6 years ago. You know your thought
Yeah.
process, what it was.
So I can't go back and say I would have continued the relationship or not. I don't know, because I can't go back to that time and say I would have or wouldn't have. But what I do know is that we have 6 years of history, or at the time that you came out as asexual, 5 years of history with our kids together and all these things that we have in common and how well our relationship is, that for me it was a no-brainer. It's not something that I would have, said, oh well, I'm willing to throw all of that away to have this one thing.
Yeah, it wasn't even a no-brainer. It was actually
A
even more
relief.
than that. It was a relief. Yeah.
Because
Which is
it-
interesting. It says a lot to me.
Because it sounds
Did I say that weird?
yeah.
Oh.
Well, it's like it's the thing that we always make fun of, the
What that?
walk-in.
Oh, Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was more so a relief because it explained a lot of things that had happened over 5 years.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so is this the point where we say what, the kind of aha of how best to proceed?
yeah, so I think that would be the perfect thing.
Okay, great.
Well, I think we stapled it in. I don't know where the sidetrack came from. Like, I don't know where we went with this, but obviously the beginning part was your asexual partner already knows that you miss and want sex in a normal
your asexual
situation.
partner knows that in a normal situation you would like sex.
Yeah.
Okay, they know that, and yeah. So when I had therapy today, I asked my therapist, I said, hey, did you have time to think about this specific question? And she was honest with me and she said, I actually didn't, but have you talked about it more? And I was like, boy, have I.
Have we ever?
Yeah. And I said, this is what we came up with. And my suggestion to Skylar last night when it got brought up is I said, I think the best thing to do is if you are feeling a lack of connection, then you can come to your ace partner and you can say, hey, I'm feeling a bit down. I'm feeling like I just need some extra connection with you. Can we put a bit of focus or more focus on the ways that we best connect over the next couple of days? I would really appreciate that. And I don't see how that could go wrong. I think that sounds beautiful. You both hopefully have gotten to a point in your relationship where you know the best ways in which you connect. So for Skylar and I, for example, that would be like giving longer hugs throughout the day. That would maybe be more intentional with giving a few more kisses throughout the day. That would be spending a bit of extra time in bed cuddling and being very intentional with that. That would be just being more thoughtful in general. That's what it would look like for Skylar and I to build a little bit of extra connection. But if your partner comes to you and is missing the literal physical act of sex, here's my take on it. I feel like if you're going to come to me and say that you miss the literal physical act of sex, then you best be prepared to have a bigger conversation with me, in a sense of you better be coming to me with more of a discussion of what the next steps are, because there is no way that I can ever do anything about that. And if this is going to be a continuous issue, I don't think it's going to be compatible. And I know that is hard. But it's funny because Skylar says he thinks that most people are feeling that sadness because of the physical, but I think most people are probably feeling that sadness because they need more connection.
Well, I think what I'm saying is that if someone was to come to their partner and they have a loving relationship and they have a connecting relationship, the only reason why they would come to their partner with that scenario would because they're missing the physical part of it. like the
And
actual sex.
yeah, and do you agree though at that point that bigger discussion needs to be had if that's going to be something? Since the ace partner knows that you definitely would love to have sex, but there's nothing that they can do about it.
Yeah, I think that, again, like you should be able to let your partner know when you're having a hard time and you're sad or you're depressed or whatever, but
I think getting to the root of it is the important part,
but it
right?
doesn't need to be spelled out in a way that you already, I know that Jesse can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And some would argue and be like, well, if she can just choose to do that. But that's sexual compliance. That is not consent. I would never ask her to do that.
No, that's really toxic.
If I ask her to do that,
and abusive.
Then she should divorce me, period.
Period. Yeah, so those are the suggestions that I came up with that I talked to my therapist about, and she said that those sounded pretty good. She said I can get on board with that. Like that sounds pretty healthy to me. And it's never going to be just this easy thing, but I do think that if you can get to the root of what's causing the sadness and it's not just the physical thing, I think that that's a pretty healthy way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let us know what you think of that. I'm a little bit nervous, but
well,
yeah.
and I think we should look at what I just said.
Okay.
When I said that if I'm asking Jesse to be sexual compliant, that you should divorce me, I think some people would think that that's pretty harsh.
No, it's not though. That's the thing. It's not.
Because I could see an allosexual partner being like, oh, so what you're saying is that if I ask my wife or partner or husband to see if they want to have sex, then they should just divorce me.
No, I think what needs to happen in that case is the ace partner, who the example we're using sounds like it's probably a sex averse or sex repulsed ace partner. If you're going to your ace partner and saying that, and they make it clear like, hey, you cannot be asking me these kinds of things. It is really, really hard for me mentally. And they continue to not respect that boundary. Yeah. I guess the question is, how long do you let them do that to you for?
Yeah, and I think in my particular thing that I just said was that you should do that for me. So,
like the allo partner is saying, you should do that for me.
Yeah. Me knowing that you don't want to, and me telling you you should.
You should want to.
Not want to, that you should do it.
Ugh.
So I am essentially pressuring you into being sexual compliant, which is not consent.
No, and it's abusive and toxic.
And so if I'm asking my partner to go against her own wishes and go against what she would do and guilt her into sexual compliance, then she shouldn't be with me. And that was the point that I was trying to make.
Yeah.
I think we did want to clarify a couple things. One, sexual compliance is really only sexual compliance when boundaries have been set.
Yeah.
So if you as an asexual partner are being sexual compliant, but you're not voicing what your where your boundaries are, that's not on your partner.
That's hard. That's hard, but it is, I would say it's the truth.
So, yes, society has put a lot of pressure on especially women. There's a different kind of pressure on asexual men.
Okay, so this feels like a silly question, but what if the ace partner doesn't feel comfortable enough to say what their boundaries are? Is that just a whole big ass red flag in general? Like, if you're not comfortable enough to say something, well, then there's bigger discussions to have.
There would have to be.
Yeah.
Because So if you're not comfortable, if you're in a situation where you can't even talk to your partner about boundaries, that that is pretty, I would say that there's a lot more going on in that relationship that's probably not good.
I guess we have a couple of different scenarios here, though. If you aren't comfortable talking to your partner about boundaries, but you aren't really doing things that cross those boundaries, I can see that not being as I can see that being a tricky situation where you might be waiting to discuss it. You're not quite confident or comfortable enough to broach the subject, but it seems okay because you're not putting yourself in the situations, right? But if you aren't comfortable talking about your boundaries and you are being physically active and intimate with your partner, that is really that's not good.
But it's
That's
also
difficult.
it's also not on them.
Right, because
They don't know.
would they respect it if you
Yeah.
would tell them?
Well,
That's the
it
question.
doesn't
They
even
should respect
well,
it.
and that doesn't even matter if they would or would not, because until you let someone know what your boundaries are, like, granted, there are, and we're talking about a relationship. We're not talking about a dating situation per se, where like there there's an inherent consent level that should be there. Like, someone shouldn't just walk up to you on the street and grab you in a way that you don't want to be grabbed.
Well, of course.
But if you're in a relationship, then you need to voice where your boundaries are. And this is not even on
Well,
an
wait.
asexual, allosexual. This is in a relationship
Right.
at all.
Okay, so you're saying you need to voice where your boundaries are, but isn't it on both partners? Isn't it on the other partner's will to say, "Are you comfortable with this?"
But we're also talking about normal stuff. Like me asking you to touch me, or me, like, in a situation where as a married couple we would be making out and we would be getting handsy and we would be going further.
Mm-hmm.
That's all typically relatively normal stuff. It's not like I'm pulling out some, gag balls and straps and rope and I'm just like
Whoa.
tying you up without having a conversation with you. Like, we're not going straight to S&M without having a conversation. But relatively normal kissing, foreplay, sexual activities in a relationship between two allosexual people without sexual trauma, there's a level of relative normality that is there. But in a relationship where there is something that you don't want to happen, you would voice that.
Yeah.
So, the easy thing is like butt play or stuff like that. Normally that's a conversation. It's a boundary that you talk about. You just don't surprise someone with it.
You shouldn't.
You shouldn't.
I hope that you
So-
say something.
So if in a normal situation you would be comfortable, or it would be expected to have a boundary discussion about the things that you don't want to do, then in an asexual relationship where your asexual partner is sex averse, or actually it doesn't even matter, because the asexual partner needs to really disclose and talk about and figure out where they are on the spectrum of sexual intimacy.
Right. And if they don't know where they're at, then the conversation needs to be had where it's like, are you comfortable trying this out?
But again, that would have to be voiced. So, because the whole conversation that we talked about, it was really about sexual compliance. And I think that, a few messages that we got, or even me thinking about it further, was, but how am I, as the allosexual, culpable to your sexual compliance if I don't know what your boundaries are? So if you, Jesse, never tell me not to ask for anything, then the assumption is going to be that I can ask to do stuff.
Do you think that, though, if you are being told no often, like, is there a point in which you're like, okay, I think there needs to be more discussion here? Is there something going on? Like, how long can someone go asking over and over and over and over again and being, told no,
I think,
right?
but again, that's where it comes down to voicing and gaining the confidence to voice your boundaries. To say, Skylar, I know that this is something that you want to do. You've asked me a few times now. I'm not comfortable, and I don't know if I ever will be. I know this is something that you want to do, and I will let you know if that's something that I ever want to do.
Yeah.
Because if you're just saying, again, and I think a lot of it will come down to, especially if you're not comfortable with voicing your boundaries, what it's going to look like or come off as is not right nows.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it right now. I don't know if I want to do that right now.
It's so easy to say that.
Or, the other things, even before that, like the I'm tired, the I'm stressed, I'm this or that. Well, when you look happy and you don't look stressed, then I'm going to ask, because all the reasons that you've told me before are no longer reasons anymore.
It's interesting to think about the beginnings of a real committed relationship situation, and that these conversations don't seem to be happening. Like, these conversations would be amazing to lay down and set down, really set the groundwork in place of all of this. What does intimacy look like to you? What are your boundaries that you know of? Can you imagine if couples at the beginning of their relationships had these kinds of conversations?
I mean,
wow.
I actually thought about this, not that I thought about not being in a relationship with you, but I was like, if something happened to you, because obviously we talked about how you almost died.
Yeah.
So if that would have happened and I got to a place where I was open to dating again, can you imagine how prepared I am now?
Yeah, I'm like, okay, truth be told, I honestly just had the exact same thought. Like, if you and I weren't together anymore for whatever reason, I would be approaching a new relationship so differently, with so much more communication under my belt.
I'd be like, what pronouns do you prefer? Like, what is your orientation? How do you feel? Like, do you know where you're at on a scale of, indifference or favorability?
I know. What do you think people would react with that kind of conversation? I mean, I feel like you'd weed people out pretty quickly with those that get it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That aren't, I don't want to say scared of it, but it's the truth. For some reason, people are so scared of setting these base levels. And I mean, there's history there, and that's why.
Well,
I get that.
Because society is so focused on sex, I think that a lot of people, especially asexual people, they're scared to voice these things because it's like almost an instant deal breaker.
I know. Well, and it just whittles you down to sex. That's what it does.
Yeah.
It feels like you have been completely reduced down to that and that alone. Like, every other bit of you is gone in that moment.
So I think it would be great if people knew their boundaries and everyone could freely discuss, like, where they're at on the scale of repulsivity to favorability, where you're at with, touch adversity or favorability, where you're at with.
We need to make like car stickers or a bumper sticker. It's like, have you talked about this with your new relationship?
Well, and we've actually heard from people. They're like, we haven't talked about this in the 20 years we've been married. We've never gone this deep into a discussion about sexual compatibility or favorability or, where we're at all.
And I didn't in my previous marriage. And you didn't either, did you? No. Like, it's bizarre to me because I feel like it's a completely different world now. I feel like we need to make a picture with this. Like, have you done this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And post it.
So I don't want to come off and scare the asexual partner to say, like, well, you better fucking figure it out and let your partner know. I'm just saying that there has to be some, I hate this word because religion, but there has to be a tiny bit of grace for the allosexual partner who could potentially be asking if you haven't had the conversation with them.
Yeah, and there's a fine line though, because that can easily turn into manipulation, and that is not okay.
And also, like, going to your, because we know that there are partners who are now like approaching their partner with saying, I've been sexual compliant for 20 years. I've been sexual compliant for 5 years, and what that looks like. And you don't want your partner to feel like shit because of that.
No, and I think that the way that that would need to come out is, hey, I need to be honest with you, and you start having a discussion and you say, I feel that I have been sexual compliant in our relationship, and I completely understand that I have not voiced the boundaries that I have, and I would like to start making a better base and really expressing those things so that we can move forward and grow.
And these are the things that I'm comfortable with. These are the things that I'm not comfortable with.
And you know what? Like, here's the thing. Even if you have to have really big boundaries at first, that is okay. At least you are saying what you need to and peel back the layers when you're ready, right? So that might look like we need to take sex off the table for now. And as I'm ready, I will express to you when I feel like we can test this boundary,
Yep.
I think the safest thing to do is to kind of go full force and say, let's take baby steps here. We need to take it off the table. And honestly, while you're taking it off the table, build on those non-sexual intimate connections. Figure out what those are between you and build that. So as the testing starts to happen slowly, you've been growing and evolving in your relationship to make it even more trustworthy to be testing those things, right?
And we've talked about this a lot, including on episode 3, where Jesse trusts my touch because I have shown and proven that my touch can be safe. And even since the first episode, the touch has even gone further, I would say, where if someone looked at it, they'd be like, oh, that's kind of,
That's definitely risque looking.
Yeah. But it's about the intention behind it. And I'm not touching,
My inner thigh.
Yeah, if we want to be specific, but not specific. But
inner thigh area. There you go.
But the thing is like, we have been able to establish these different ways of touching and non-sexual intimacy that brings us closer. And because she trusts my intentions, she's not having this fear that I'm going to be like, oh, in the heat of the moment, do something that I shouldn't do.
Right.
And be like, well, I just couldn't help myself because you're naked and I'm like, it's working me up.
I just couldn't help myself.
Isn't that so gross?
Yes.
Yeah.
I am not an object.
I mean, you are an object. You're a person. You're just not objectified.
You know what I mean?
I know.
Okay.
I mean, technically, you're an object.
No technicals. Stop it.
I can't remember. Did we talk about getting behaviors last episode? Did we clarify on that?
No, but maybe we should talk about that next week.
Well, it kind of ties into this.
Oh, well, if it ties in, be my guest.
So I wanted to talk about getting behaviors because it's something that we talk about a lot on this podcast, is getting behaviors. And it's why I feel like we've already discussed this, because some of the discussions that we have, like during the week or weeks, it's hard to distinguish now where the podcast ends and our normal conversations begin.
Right. And we're always talking about things. So,
So if in the 2-hour episode we did talk about this, I apologize, but getting behaviors are not all bad. There are some that are necessary, but typically, so where this idea of like getting behaviors stems from is this idea that if you do something, there will be a certain reaction.
mm-hmm.
So a baby knows that if you pick them up when they cry, then they're going to do what next time they want to be picked up?
They're going to cry.
So we as adults, we have getting behaviors as well. We know that if we go into a restaurant or a fast food restaurant and we raise our voice and throw a little bit of a tantrum, then we're going to get something. They're going to replace our meal.
You're going to get kicked out. No, I'm just kidding.
They're going to replace our meal because, how dare you put pickles on this when I asked for no pickles? And I'm going to show you that I'm very upset so that you have a reaction of me getting what I want, which is free food.
Yeah.
I'm going to, I bought a loaf of bread and it had a hole in the center through like five pieces of bread. So I'm going to email the customer service and tell them that there was an issue with the loaf of bread, so they send me coupons for free bread.
Skylar's literally saying an experience. He used that. He had that getting behavior. And guess what, guys? He did get coupons and he did get free bread.
You bet you I did. I did that more so that I could let them know that their quality assurance needed to be looked at a little bit better.
Okay.
I'm thinking about the one where we had the oatmeal packets with like the
Ew.
spider webs in it.
Ew, don't gross people out. Stop it. And now they're going to all be looking in their oatmeal packets like, what the?
But there are certain things, like we had a situation recently where we have, kid phone type things, and we were having a negative experience where there was like an account collision type issue on the back end of the database for this company. And on the call, the person at the time said, well, we're going to give you a month free because essentially you haven't been able to use this. So then when I was talking to them a few weeks later, when we finally got to, talking to them again, I brought that up and said, oh yeah, we've been having this issue for like a month now. And the other person said that they would give us a month free. And they said, well, I can give you a week free. I can't give you a month free. And I'm like, well, that's what they said. And the guy started getting defensive. And I said, look, I'm happy to like leave. I'm happy to take this elsewhere and leave some reviews about this experience because you're the one that told me what you were going to give me, and now you don't want to give me that. And so they said, so then a supervisor came on and gave me a month free. But the idea was I wasn't just trying to be an asshole to get something free that was not deserved. They caused an issue on their back end, which caused us to not be able to use their service for a month that we were paying for.
Right. And then they offered it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are situations where getting behaviors are necessary, where getting behaviors are certainly not necessary is when I start using emotions and things to make my partner feel bad.
It's not even that's abusive behavior. That is emotional and abuse right there. Don't you think?
Well, if you boil it all down,
yeah, if you're
then that's what it
manipulating
is.
your partner and getting behaviors.
But we talk about so when we talk about before, where I've been like, it's been a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't trying to be abusive or manipulate you to having sex. I was just...
No, that feels like it was manipulative to try to get me to want to have sex. Come on. Fess up. Let's go.
I think that if we look back, I realized it was never on your mind or it wasn't something you were thinking about. So I was bringing it up.
Yeah, you wanted to put a little seed in there? Oh gosh, I shouldn't have said that. Sorry.
But you had also told me that I should be the one that should initiate.
Yeah, because I didn't. Well, I'm thinking, I'm not going to initiate.
So then if you're telling me that I should be the one to initiate, but then when I talk about it, it upsets you.
But you know what? I think there's a difference between being like, it's been a couple of weeks, and you being like, hey, we should maybe get intimate tonight. That's different. Why bring up the couple weeks? Why bring up the 6 weeks? Okay, like, damn.
Because you always thought it wasn't? I don't know.
I know, but do you see that, though?
It was accounting issues.
But do you see accounting issues? Do you see, though, that how easily that could be so manipulative?
No, and I understand.
One approach
but I think that where it super becomes that way is when the boundaries are clear, when you've made your self I don't know what I'm trying to say. When you have said, like, don't ask me, and when you've had those conversations of, this is where I'm at with sex, this is where I'm at, I don't need you to talk to me, I don't need you to remind me how long it's been, I don't none of that matters. But
excuse my language, but the mindfuckery around this is so large. It is painful. It is so painful, because I can put myself in this exact place of where I was at, of like, you're going to need to initiate. And then you're so uncomfortable initiating because you're initiating in a way of reminding me how long it's been, right? But you have no idea how to initiate it because it's uncomfortable. And so then you're like, no, Jesse, you're going to need to initiate. And then I'm like, I can't. I can't. I don't know why I can't. I have no idea why. But it's not in there. What am I supposed to do? I'm trapped. I don't know what to do.
And at the time when I was looking, and I'm like, how am I supposed to initiate? Like, because I can't just initiate every other day. I can't initiate even once a week.
I don't think I'm going far out on a limb here in saying there's probably a lot of partners out there initiating every other day, trying to initiate.
Yeah, but so to me, it was like, okay, there has to be enough time to have gone by where certainly if I brought it up,
it's reasonable.
It would spark some kind of reasonable response of being like, oh.
I know, but all that feels like is, oh, yeah, it's been that long. I probably should do that.
Because you were asking me to initiate, and I felt uncomfortable because I'm like,
yeah. Cycle of awful.
So
how did we do it?
I don't know.
How the fuck did we get through that, Skylar?
So we learned a lot.
Yes, we did, and that's why we're here, folks.
But there was even times where and we talked about this. Probably on episode 3 or 4, where, it was like, I ain't going to touch anything but your ankle. Like, I'm going to be so far away that...
Those were the thoughts in your head. You didn't say that to me. I would have been like, are you kidding me right now?
So but we swing so far, like the pendulum went so far back and forth, where it's like, it was like, you need to initiate, and then I would initiate, and then I get in trouble for initiating, and then I'm like, I'm not going to initiate. You have to initiate.
I was so lost and confused and had zero answers. So painful. Which leads me to thinking about such an interesting thing that happened today. And I want to dive more into it next week. But I got to thinking today, like, wow, it's been a year. It's been a year that I've known I'm asexual. And what a year it's been. But I wanted to know the exact date. And so I had a way of remembering that I had talked a lot about it on Marco Polo to somebody. And there was a lot of discussion with this other person of like, oh my gosh, I'm asexual. Holy crap, I can't believe this is happening. So I knew that if I knew at least the general time frame, I could go back and figure it out. And it has officially been over a year now. It was July 24th of last year, 2023, that I very much stapled it in that I am very much so asexual. And what it offered me was I got to see the days leading up to figuring it out, the day of figuring it out, and the days after figuring it out. And wow. It was not easy to listen to me figuring it out, discovering it. I got a lot of insight from it, but I do think it deserves more time and attention and unraveling and talking
What-
more about that.
What voice was
Unraveling? I don't know. So,
Jessica?
you know what I found out today?
What?
On a side note, there was this British guy and he starts just busting up on TikTok and he's talking about how he just learned that Americans will randomly just bust out in British accent when they're nervous. And he's like, the funny thing is that British people just bust out in American accents when they're having a moment too. And I just think that's hilarious. And then it was confirmed in the comments like, oh yeah, I bust out in that all the time. I bust out in accents all the time. I don't know if it's ADHD. I don't know if it's nerves. I don't know if it's just because I'm a big spaz. It's something. Anyway, sidetrack.
All of the above.
All of the above. Anyway, I'm excited to talk about that more next week. I don't know how many people have the opportunity to look back at their actual deconstruction and reconstruction in that sense. And it was unbelievable to be able to do that. So my anniversary of my asexuality, of knowing, is July 24th.
Pie and Beer Day.
And I think that that's something to appreciate and value. Like, it's something to celebrate.
The ex-Mormons will recognize the reference to Pie and Beer Day.
Yes, they will. July 24th. That should be easy enough to remember, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, this has been a really great episode. It's been so fun to talk.
Know your boundaries.
Know your boundaries.
Sexual compliance after boundaries are set.
Mm-hmm.
Not all getting behaviors are bad, but some are.
Yeah, watch out for that.
And
if you don't know your boundaries, start strong and baby step out.
but I will say that we don't need to get back into it, but start with the boundaries that cause the most emotional trauma to you.
Wait, what? What do you mean?
Like sex versus making out.
So you're saying think about sex and if you want to do that and then try to do it and then realize where you're at with it?
No.
Oh gosh, that really freaked me out.
No, set the boundaries with your partner for the things that cause you the most emotional.
But what if you
first.
don't know? That's why I'm saying you need to start off strong with strong boundaries and baby step out of it, right? Baby step out of peeling back those layers.
So go from no soup for you.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Honestly, though, don't you think that's the safest bet?
I would say that what I don't know what voice that was.
What is with us tonight?
I would say that that's a bit dangerous because you if I could take a picture of the face that you
A
just
bit
made,
dangerous.
what I mean is if you're like no sex, don't touch me, don't kiss me, don't hold my hands.
No. That's not what I mean.
Okay,
I
you should
mean-
clarify
I mean-
because people are going to take you.
I mean, start off strong and saying, I think we should take sex off of the table.
Okay.
Any form of sex.
What I was
Because you would probably know your boundaries with hand holding and kissing at that point. I would say.
I would sure hope so.
I would hope so. I would hope so. Maybe not.
But
I would
you,
hope so.
but not to go into your next week's episode, but there were a lot of things that you were quote unquote sure about that you weren't sure about.
I know, and we will talk about it next week.
So on that,
We are so happy that you're here listening. Please reach out. Talk to us. Let us know how you're doing. And we will love to.
we will love to.
We will love to. We would love to hear from you. Is all I'm saying. Jeez.
That's all she's saying.
That's all she wrote.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.